Oops, I'm on the wrong side of the
Oh.
line. All right, and let's see if that pulls up on feed here. There we are. Awesome, so we're all set. Hello and welcome back to another WCN Live on Facebook here in our Wilson County Newsbreaker. I'm your usual host, Julia, the Marketing and Social Media Specialist.
Hi, I'm Kristen Weaver, Director of Operations.
And today we are joined by
Eric Cooper. I'm the President and CEO of your San Antonio Food Bank.
Yeah, and so today we're going to be talking all about the San Antonio Food Bank and their mission, which is aimed at fighting hunger and feeding hope throughout Southwest Texas. So all very exciting stuff. We're going to get to learn all about this wonderful organization, when and why they were founded, what they do. And before we get into that very exciting talk, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Price Chrysler Dodge Ram and Jeep. They are hiring for all positions at their new facilities in Floresville. They're located on Highway 181 going south. So if you're coming into Floresville from San Antonio, they'll be on your right before you hit Walmart. They welcome you to join them at their new facilities or to search for cars and careers online at pricecdrj.com. So thank you, Price, and thank you guys for those of you who joined us last week and participated in our video with your comments. We'll now be drawing a winner from those comments. So if you're not aware, we do a weekly comment contest. So to enter, all you have to do is comment on our videos while we're live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And if you comment on today's video, for example, those names will be drawn through
Next week.
They will be drawn next week from this same little cup here that we have the names of people who entered last week. All right. So, Mr. Cooper, would you do the honors?
Lucky winner here. All right.
Let's see who
Looks
it is.
like it is Corey Larson.
Oh,
so
wow.
Congratulations,
And Corey
Corey
just joined us.
Oh.
Congrats, Corey.
Yep, he's the first comment of the day today and the winner from last week. So congrats,
cool.
Corey. You have won sorry, I have an alarm going off. You've won a C Street Gift Shop gift bag, which will be available for pickup from our offices in Floresville. And so be looking out for a message from me, from Julia, not from the Wilson County News, about how to pick up that prize and what to do if you can't make it in to pick it up.
Okay.
So, and that being said, be sure to leave a comment, whether you're just telling us hi or asking a question for Mr. Eric Cooper about the San Antonio Food Bank, so that you're not only getting those questions answered, but also entering to win next week. So, all right, let's start with, who are you and where are you from?
So I have actually worked at the San Antonio Food Bank for almost 23 years, 30 years in the space of nonprofit food banking. Grew up in North Texas, a little town called Argyle, and just south of Denton, near Crum and Ponder, if you're familiar with some small Texas towns. But I was recruited by the board in 2001, and it's been an amazing journey. I think a lot of people know the food bank, but they don't really know the details of what we do. So excited to share some of that today.
I'm excited to learn.
Fascinating, yeah.
And so I understand the food bank does a lot more than just provide food. You also have some really interesting programs and activities and events that y'all put on and provide for your community. So that said, what do you do at the food bank as their CEO and president?
Well, a little bit of everything. I think sometimes I think of myself as the little wooden wedge that is stuck to hold a door open, So that really is the role of any nonprofit leader, is you're just trying to keep the doors open. And I'm sure for a small business it's a little bit of the same, whatever it takes. But I think, a little bit for, viewers and listeners, the context of the food bank. So we're one of 200 food banks across the United States that make up a national organization called Feeding America. So every major kind of, metropolitan area has a local food bank. And the role of the food bank is really to collect as much food as possible and distribute it through partners and programs. And so our geographical area is actually 29 counties, so a very large area. We go up towards, San Angelo, and as far south as maybe Crystal City, Cotulla. So these are, big parcels of property and sometimes sparsely populated. So the challenge of kind of the logistics and getting food to families, we rely on incredible partners. So we have about 850 different nonprofit partners that help us in the distribution of food and along with our programs. And so we've got some great partners here locally and in the school districts and the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And so our food collection will come in to our main facility in San Antonio, but we do have facilities in San Angelo and New Braunfels and Frio County down in Pearsall. And then the food is delivered to those partner organizations or, again, directly to families through our programs. And so we take a very holistic approach. We think that, hunger is a symptom of poverty, and so people in poverty generally have lots of challenges. Someone that's hungry generally just has one. And until you solve that simple problem of nourishment that sometimes isn't so simple, you can't start to address the complexity of poverty. And so a lot of our programs address those root causes and really try to bring families forward to a place of self-sufficiency and self-reliance. So.
Well, let's kind of talk about that. So hunger and satisfying hunger, or no longer being, let's call it chronically hungry, seems to be like that stepping stone toward finding further prosperity. So you have to solve those basic needs before you can focus on going up the stepping stones.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think sometimes we oftentimes hear that parable of, you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or teach him how to fish and feed him for a lifetime.
Very true.
Generally explain, well, she'd love to learn how to fish. She can't meet you at the dock unless you pack a tuna fish sandwich for herself and her kids, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really, of the 105,000 people we feed each week, oftentimes the most common profile is female, parent, working. She's really doing all she can, but she just isn't making enough. She'd love to go on that fishing trip and get additional skills that might deliver a higher wage, but it's tough to do both. When you've got kids at home, you gotta feed them, and so sometimes that job that might not be producing enough income is how things are barely holding together. And she's leaning on the food bank when the cupboards are bare, refrigerator's empty, or kids are hungry. And so I think the work of the food bank, we're really trying to do that tandem work, providing the fish while helping to get access to fishing lessons. But then I think it goes a little farther. We really have to do more to ensure that the fishing industry has a living wage, right? Has a salary that then moves people out of our line. And it's a complex, never-ending work, but we're excited about the success we're having.
Yeah, let's talk about some of that success. What are you doing, and maybe tell us some of the things that have come of those activities and campaigns.
Yeah, so we really frame our work into three areas of what we call food for today, food for tomorrow, and then food for a lifetime. And those three buckets or strategies for us is what families can experience if they're in need of assistance. Oftentimes, like I said, people reach out when they're in crisis and they're needing a meal or they're needing groceries, and that really solves the immediate need of hunger for today. But once we've got them groceries, there's really a conversation about food for tomorrow. And for us, that's about accessing public benefits, federal programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, or WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. Sometimes the families lack health insurance, so Medicaid, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. For seniors, there's a program called Long-Term Care. But all of these are federal safety net programs that oftentimes in communities go unutilized. People don't understand them, they don't realize they're eligible, maybe there's stigma associated with those programs, and so they just don't want to mess with that. And so really the food bank is there to help families understand those programs and apply for those programs. it's actually a fairly complicated process to apply for those benefits. I always kind of connect it to the SNAP application is actually written called the 1010, and it's not all that different than the 1040. Most people don't do the 1040 on their own for the IRS. You use
submit that to TurboTax.
TurboTax. So yeah, you nailed it. So I think the food bank is the TurboTax of the 1010, right?
Sure.
So we help families kind of navigate that complex application because the state of Texas, through the Health and Human Service Commission, doesn't give credit for incomplete. It's got to be complete, it's got to be correct, and oftentimes families that fill out their application do it incorrectly or don't complete the application, and they're denied benefits, not because they're not eligible, but because they didn't complete the application. And so we really work to then stabilize households in what we call Food for Tomorrow. And there's some incredible resources that a family can receive when applying for those public benefits. But in that process, we really see who's working and who's unemployed and who's underemployed. And so there's a real conversation around workforce development, job training, job placement, and what we call Food for a Lifetime. And I was so excited to hear about your sponsor having job opportunities, because ultimately that's one of the ways we will all put food on the table, and that's through our own earned income. And so getting families earning a wage that covers all of those expenses. And I know here in Floresville, you guys have experienced the same as the rest of the country, and rent goes up, right? And so in many households, I like to say that rent eats first, right? It takes a chunk of the household budget, and generally what's left over is paying for utilities and maybe transportation costs. But then what is left over is what's buying food. And for too many families here in the community, there's just nothing left over. And so that's where they're leaning on the food bank.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And so through that Food for a Lifetime, through that part of your initiative, are you helping folks find jobs to apply for, or like how does that work?
Great question. So oftentimes people that are unemployed, it's just a matter of just, shaking that off and, refreshing the resume and helping them connect to incredible programs that we offer, and then we offer a lot in partnership with the Workforce Solutions Alamo. So they work with lots of organizations to post their job opportunities, and we'll work to kind of navigate. But then if they're lacking skills and they need some training, we have access to different training programs. In fact, at our facility, we offer culinary arts training and warehouse training. And so if someone wants to get into warehousing, I know some of our warehouse employers like HEB has lots of positions they're trying to fill. And these are jobs that oftentimes start at $18, $19 an hour. And if they join our program, it's at no charge to them. And over several weeks, they'll be certified on forklifts and material handling equipment. They'll understand inventory and kind of warehouse practices. And then we'll market that graduate of our program to all of the different distribution companies and warehouse companies to ultimately get them on the path to employment. And, I find more often we get feedback from our participants that you said it earlier, and it's our mission or motto to fight hunger and feed hope. I think sometimes when you've lost a job, you feel a little hopeless.
Absolutely.
You feel like the whole world's against you and nobody's rooting for you, or you don't feel like you have value. And it's humbling to see when someone comes in, maybe at the lowest point, needing basic things like food, and then being nourished physically, but I think then this opportunity to almost be nourished mentally and emotionally and in some cases spiritually, as they're just being strengthened to move forward, and that tomorrow is going to be better than today. So food's pretty powerful, and I think it's oftentimes where it all starts, and the power of food to convene and bring people together. oftentimes think of food as kind of culture.
No, food is so important in culture. I was about to make a little comment about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, food has been bringing generations and communities and everyone together for as long as we can remember. It's like what life circulates around and what civilization was built around at its beginnings.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's really the cornerstone, you know?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you think about family recipes and holidays, and, you know, for many people, their first date is over a meal, right? And
Sure.
then oftentimes at a funeral, right? You know, food is served, and so it's just this start and stopping of life, and you know, it's such a powerful thing. Ultimately, it's the greatest expression of love, and I think it's such a privilege to work in a space where I think we're just trying to provide some love.
Yeah, I like how you put that, providing some love. And so, that all being said, you mentioned, I know y'all's home base is like in the San Antonio area, but you do serve the Wilson County area.
Correct.
So, are there any upcoming events in or near the Wilson County area that you are aiming to spread love in?
There are, and so, you know, I think it's important to think about your San Antonio Food Bank as your food bank.
Yeah.
I sometimes think geography, sometimes, I'm not from there, but
Yeah.
boy, we've had this privilege of being here in Wilson County for over 43 years. And so, but most people don't really understand that we're here because the work that we do is either through a partner organization or
Right.
program, but we're kind of behind the scenes. And so,
Wow.
but there's two sides of our work, really, the give help and then the get help. In the give help, we always need food. So, you know, farmers, ranchers, food manufacturers, organizations that can conduct food drives, you know, all of that can support our work. Time is the next thing we need, so volunteers. We actually are so blessed to have about 2,000 volunteers a week that help us throughout our communities, serving, packing. We have farmland that we harvest, we have kitchens that produce meals, so there's really an infinite amount of volunteer opportunities all over. You can do it virtually or in person, so please, you know, go to our website, safoodbank.org, to learn about how to give time. Financially, you can support us. Now, we're crazy fanatical about making sure that we squeeze the buffalo off the nickel. So we want to be the most efficient nonprofit, and we actually are ranked in the top 2% of all nonprofits in the United States. Just 2% administrative overhead. So 98 cents out of every dollar goes directly to programming, and $1 to us equals 7 meals, so we can really leverage that dollar well.
Yeah.
The last thing that we need is voice. So we think of voice as you all in the great tradition that you have, and giving news to the community and sharing what's happening. We all have platforms, and leveraging our platform to advocate and educate the community about opportunities. So please post this, share this. If you've heard something today, you know, use your social media stream. Another voice that we can raise is prayer. You know, just an offering of prayer on behalf of families that are struggling. And then at this time, you know, advocate. You know, a lot of these inequities come from policies or some level of an injustice, and so you know, our government has a role to play. Not all of the work, but they're a portion of it. And so at the state level, there's policy around programs that help families, and we're always encouraging people to lean in and help legislators understand the role of that program and how it is impacting their community. And then at the federal level, so this is actually a critical time at the federal level, because you've got so much going on with debt ceiling conversations, but there's a very large bill called the Farm Bill that's debated every 5 years that supports agriculture. So here in Wilson County, there's a lot of farmers. Texas has a lot of farmers, and these programs through the federal government support farmers, but then they also support the families we care about. So, as I mentioned, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, its funding comes from the Farm Bill, and so there's a lot of conversation in Washington right now on the future and opportunities for SNAP. I think it's always important to let people know we've invested well over £500,000 just in the last 12 months in food coming to Wilson County. So when you think about it, the value of that food in the last 12 months that we've collected and now distributed is actually worth about $1 million wholesale.
Wow.
So a lot of value.
Yeah.
But from the food bank, that $1 million in food over the last 12 months, SNAP actually puts 9 times more food into Wilson County than I do.
Right.
So
Mhm.
if that's cut,
Right.
I'll have to do more to make up the difference. And it's tough for us to even grow 10% or 15% or to
Mhm.
double on small cuts to SNAP mean big impacts to the food bank. And so I think food, time, money, voice is the 4 things people can do to give help. On the get help, there's lots of ways families can participate in that today, tomorrow, and a lifetime. It starts just going to our website, and you'll see the Get Help button, and you just click on that. You'll see where and when resources are provided. So there's several distributions that will occur here in Wilson County over the next 30 days.
Right.
Families can register for those distributions online and then come and get food. If you're not familiar with the incredible food pantries here in the community, we can introduce you and get you a referral to those organizations or educate you on the work that we're doing in the school district. So lots of ways that families can get help, and then as they might know now from this program, what to expect in the offering from the San Antonio Food Bank.
Right. And so you mentioned registering online for those distributions. Is registration required?
So it is. I say it is. Look, we will not turn anyone away. So
Right.
if someone's in need, but it's important that families register because that allows us to plan.
Right.
And so we're bringing a
Enough.
truckload of food, a set amount for those that we're expecting, and so we don't want to run out, and we don't want to short someone that needed the food and registered, and so it's important to communicate, and but we do plan for a little bit extra so that we can make sure if somebody walks up and hadn't registered, you can register on site, and then the staff and volunteers will take care of you.
Awesome. All right. Great. I'm glad I asked that. Okay. And so we've been talking a lot about partners and distribution sites. Can you name some of your partners that are in Wilson County or your distribution sites in Wilson County?
I can.
Oh, good.
So
Yay.
we've got some great partners and want to give them a shout out. So Poth ISD, obviously wonderful, Lavernia ISD, Stockdale and Forestville ISD. So we have the Lavernia Christian Food Pantry.
Okay.
And I always think when I'm giving them a shout out, I'm like the loving parent who loves all of our kids equally, and they're all awesome, right? But we know there's some that just really lead, and the Society of St. Vincent de Paul at Sacred Heart Catholic Church of Floresville has had a long-standing tradition of serving the community, along with First Baptist Church, and then Food Pantry in Poth, and Portfolio Residential Services, Highland Oaks, By His Grace Church, Conviva Healthcare is a great partner, and we do a lot with Wilson County.
Right.
The judge is a good friend of the food bank and a strong advocate for residents, and so The county's been a great partner in helping us with distributions. We've leveraged the fairgrounds for many of the distributions.
Right.
And so, it's always, I think, so motivating to see how small towns come together. And so for us, it makes our work easier, because everybody knows everybody. The communication is probably less difficult as it is in some of our larger, more urban areas that we serve.
Sure.
But ultimately, I think sometimes people in rural community have more barriers to getting help than urban communities, because there's maybe more nonprofits or more churches, more distribution sites.
More public transportation.
Absolutely, where accessibility, really when you think about hunger, nutrition, there's 4 big barriers to nutrition. The first is really income. How much you make, as we've been talking, determines how well you eat.
Right.
But the second big barrier to good nutrition is geography. So where you live, some communities, food deserts, right? Places that don't have access to a traditional grocery store. I don't know if you've heard the term food swamp. Some areas densely populated with fried foods or, convenient foods. And so when you're looking for nutritious food, what do you have access to? In rural communities, you might have to travel even farther than most. The third big barrier to good nutrition is education. You might have access to healthy food, but you don't know how to prepare it,
Sure.
Time, energy, experience, and being able to turn, fresh produce into a healthy meal. So learning how to cook, quick fix ideas can help with nutrition. And then the last big variable on nutrition is really the commerce of food, marketing, advertising. So much food that's accessible oftentimes is more affordable, but not super healthy for us.
Right.
And it's heavily marketed. I always think of like the Super Bowl as the most expensive advertising, and what's advertised, right? So alcohol, beer,
Tostitos.
sodas, chips, right? Fast food.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the avocado, nothing healthy would be advertised, right? But it's
Right.
like the communities get shaped by that. And so ultimately the role of the food bank is to provide nourishment. We want people to live happy, healthy, productive lives, and food is at the center of that.
Right, and you mentioned learning how to cook. Is that something that the food bank can help with?
We do. So it is nestled into our Food for a Lifetime work. And so we have several registered dietitians on staff and nutrition educators. And so they're always out in community, whether at a senior center here in Wilson County or at one of our pantries or in our main facility. If you have a need for nutrition education, you can reach out again through our website. It's important. Cooking is so critical, right? Knowing how to cook. And, I think we talked a little bit about food is love and culture and tradition and in households passing on those great recipes. But spending time in the kitchen with your family. I just attended a conference called Food as Medicine, and food is so much. And I think it can be upstream when it comes to healthcare and preventative strategies to maybe avoid chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and hypertension. All of those are malnutrition, or the term mal is bad, right? So bad nutrition equals bad health, and if we can have better nutrition, we can have better health. Oftentimes, moms in a limited scarcity context in a grocery store will migrate to cheaper carbs, starches, belly fillers, to nourish their family, to fill their child's stomach, versus really nourish. And kids are picky eaters, right? And so you have to be strategic and and recipes and flavor is going to play a big role in making sure that kids eat food, right? Our nutritionist taught me a phrase, it's not nutritious unless they eat it. And for kids, that can be a challenge. So you might have to, lose ground from, I know in the National School Lunch Program, white milk doesn't get consumed as much as chocolate milk, but that vitamin D is an important thing for a growing healthy body. And so to be able to get that compromised and in a low sugar chocolate milk sometimes can be the best strategy.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, and so we've talked about, we mentioned some of the partners and distribution areas in Wilson County just a bit ago. Are you in need of more partners or centers to distribute?
Great question. I think right now we've got enough partners. It's really in the volunteers that are coming and assisting those partners. And so sometimes these churches, right, their pews are a little more empty, and those that are filling the pews are mature, amazing, well-seasoned individuals. And oftentimes a senior is a typical volunteer, and they're retired, they have time, but because of their age, they've got limitations. And so we always need to kind of leverage youth and adults to join in those distribution sites, to be able to maybe down stack some boxes or help in some of the physical work. And so leaning in, if you're watching this, again, you can go to our website. There's an agency locator. We can follow up maybe with a link or something, and just really, rather than starting something new, leaning in to support the existing infrastructure is what we would recommend.
Well, and that's going to be more efficient, not just for you as a person wanting to make a difference, but for making said difference, Well, that makes sense. And so we understand you accept volunteers. How about careers at the San Antonio Food Bank? How do you get involved with such a wonderful nonprofit?
Well, thank you for asking that. And one little quick thought is, don't just volunteer for your local food pantries. You can donate. Food drives from this community, logistically, it's easier for us to direct that resource right to our partners.
Right.
And so I know there's a program we have called Hunters for the Hungry. If you're a rancher and you have a deer population you'd like to cull, please go to our website. Tremendous information there. Again, we try to direct all of those resources back into our community here. But financially, it's important to make donations to these organizations. You can always donate to the food bank. We'll be integral and strategic and efficient with it. But we'd also ask you to go the extra mile and support local nonprofits and churches that are doing this work. Our website is this amazing resource, and as you guys know, it is open 24 hours. It's where people can go and kind of self-navigate. We use a term self-availing, and it allows you in the comforts of your own space, wherever you like to go online, to be able to read, learn, enroll, participate, engage. And so our website's our best front door. And one of the high visibilities on our website where a lot of people go is for employment, which is a humbling thing for us. We have incredible staff, and I think if you're looking for a career in a nonprofit and you want to spend a portion of your life or all of your life in this work, I think it's important to feel that call within you, and to be passionate about it, and then what's your skill set, and where can you contribute. We have lots of jobs working in our warehouse and in our kitchens. We have lots of jobs for drivers, you know.
Yeah, getting the food where it needs to
Mhm.
go.
Logistics and supply chain. But then we also have jobs with our program staff, kind of coordinating these distributions and working. We have a call center that takes phone calls from all those families in our Food for Tomorrow strategy. We also have volunteer coordinators and fundraisers, people that are bringing in that food, time, money, voice. And then, you know, we have some amazing staff that work in our farm and our garden. In fact, we're looking for staff in that space right now. So if you're a green thumb and you have some professional skills in farming, I'd love for you to reach out for us, because we've got about almost 75 acres that we farm and
Wow.
grow crops for the families we serve. So
Mhm.
That's
if you can
cool.
operate a tractor, we want to talk to you.
Okay.
So please reach out. But there's just always postings. Obviously, it changes. One of the cool things is we have a fairly low turnover rate because I think high job satisfaction.
Mhm.
Our hourly wages start at $16 an hour, and that comes with health insurance for both full-time and part-time employees. We have a retirement program. We have personal time off. So I'm feeling like the Chamber of
Mhm.
Commerce here, marketing
Yeah.
our jobs. But I think it's so important for us to model what we'd like other employers to do. It's not easy, right? I'm a business too, and I've got to have revenue that exceeds expenses, otherwise
Yeah, you can't
we
do
go
what you
under,
do.
right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
but it's so important, you know, to have an offering as an employer that is sustainable for you with quality workers that are highly productive, but then also that sustains them and their household. You know, it's you know, the term living wage or meaningful employment or sustainable wages, it's really about just trying to make sure that people can live and work in the same community. And
Yeah.
what's been interesting throughout our 29 counties is to see communities that really are struggling with that variable. And San Antonio has a largest population, a high rate of poverty and food insecurity, but in some ways more affordability when it comes to certain household expenses. And I think for our more suburb and rural communities, household costs are going up. I mean, we talk transportation, but housing. And so now we're seeing where people can't afford to live and work in that community. And so they're moving to the outskirts and commuting in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's a challenge, and, you know, we're just going to do what we can to make sure families have access to things like food.
That makes so much sense, and I like that you say you're modeling what you want your food for a lifetime, you know, those employers to be able to provide the people that you're helping. That makes so much sense, because the point is to sustain food. Wow. All right, and so that all said, I know we've mentioned your website a million times, but I assume that's the place to go if folks want to learn more about the food bank and keep up with what you're doing. Can you give us the URL?
Yeah, so again, it's safoodbank.org. So
Alright.
San Antonio Food Bank, safoodbank.org. If you're in Comal County ever, you can go to nbfoodbank.org, the New Braunfels Food Bank. San Angelo is the Concho Valley Food Bank. And so, you know, Google will take you most places you want to go, but pulling up our website is where it starts.
Right.
On our website, again, it's organized into two sides, the Give Help and the Get Help, and then all of those job opportunities is in careers, and you can click on that link to learn more. Our public policy and engagement, so just so much information. There's educational components on the website. It's where you would go to register for an upcoming food distribution here in Wilson County.
And to see what's available around you too.
Correct.
Great.
So starts at safoodbank.org. You can call us. Our main number is 210-337-FOOD. So 210-337-FOOD or 3663. If you're in need of help, don't call that main number because that, well, you can, and they'll just transfer you. But you can call 210-431-8326. That gets you directly connected to our call center. Again, 210-431-8326. That is directly into the call center, and there's staff and volunteers that are standing by to take your call to help you understand today, tomorrow, and a lifetime programs, and really make sure that your needs are taken care of. We're always doing the best we can.
Yeah.
We're as good as the support we get from the communities we serve, and so with patience and grace, I think we try to operate. So we encourage the same in return.
Awesome. All right. Well, I feel like I've learned so much about the food bank. I had no idea that y'all had all these educational initiatives and things like that. That is so cool. So thank you so much for kind of giving us an overview of what you do, pointing us in the right directions for folks that want to get more involved with helping their communities or getting help themselves. That's very meaningful, and I know it will help a lot of people.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, super excited to be here. And again, we look forward to seeing everybody engaging in this work.
Yeah.
And if you're needing help, please reach out.
Now we know.
Absolutely. And so that all said, thank you guys also for joining us today. We hope that you learned a lot. Like you mentioned earlier, word of mouth is so important, especially when you're in need of help and you need to learn more about where to get it. So if you know folks who are interested in this type of work or who may need some help, definitely send them this video, send them to the San Antonio Food Bank's website. And also, thank you to our sponsor, Price Chrysler Dodge Ram and Jeep. You're now inadvertently involved in helping the San Antonio Food Bank's mission, so that's really cool. So, but again, Price CDRJ is hiring for all positions, so that includes their service bays, that includes indoors in their offices, greeting folks, selling cars. And so if you're interested, you can apply for you can apply for careers or shop for cars at pricecdrj.com. You can also visit them on Highway 181 South in Floresville. And so thank you, Price. Thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you'll be back next Wednesday for another WCN Live at 10 a.m. And thank you again.
Yeah, I think it's been a privilege.
All right, we'll see y'all
See ya.
soon.